maybe they're discussing. Xian. Ni there. Fujian. Wanjiang is here. Shinze and Yuanzhen is there. Yi is here. Jinjin is here. What are we missing? Deepak and Tushan. Oh, sorry, Deepak and. So we can get going. Let me see if these guys are coming in. You guys are coming in? You can work on it another 5-10 minutes at your desk, but I'll explain something and then you can start. So, last class we had a presentation on forms, okay? But there were a few things that I wanted to patch on this stuff. So I've created some lecture notes for notes. It's in the module. So this stuff is in the module. There is also in the repo, in the GitHub repo, there is a part from the tag, I think, is it the lecture? No, sorry, lecture 12. Oh no, this is not lecture 12. Okay, so it's not this one, but actually it's a different repo. Sorry about that. I've just created a different repo called. Where do I see all the repos? Yeah, there is a repo called Forms, okay, and explains a few of these things about forms. Now, on the drop-down button form field, which we saw the other day, on the drop-down button form field, so you have a form field which has an unsaved value, with, like all the other text fields, okay, and it has the items. So this is the list of items, but the items themselves are drop-down menu items. Okay, so when you do that with a certain type, like in this case it's a string, so this is now selecting pizza toppings. If you do it with a certain type, this drop-down menu item, then when it's saved, it gets saved as that value. Okay. Now in the previous class, in what the group, which group was this? 7 or which group are you guys? 3. Yeah. What group 3 presented on the forms? If we go to, I mean, this is really for reference. I don't want to go through here, but for example, they had student type or something as an enum, okay? As an enum, they had a student type, but then they had an extension to be able to type that student type because these are the enum values, for example, gender, male, female, etc. These are the enum values, right? Enum names. And then they wrote an extension to be able to write it in sort of a human form, with capital and so on and so forth. But there is a new way to do it with the enum method, okay? So in the enum method, for each enum, you can actually set properties. So you can set a properties description, something else. You can set as many properties as you want in this fashion. So each enum gets it's sort of like a class with static values. It's something new. But this way, when I create this enum, I don't need to create another extension. And when I want to display this value male in the drop-down, I just use its description. So basically, in the item builder, I'm returning a text, right? Because on the menu, I'm returning a text. Now, I can just choose this enum and call its description property to be able to write it there. But then the value that comes to me is of this type enum. Okay? So this is the proper way to do it with the new way of enums. If you have a drop-down, because on your project you obviously have drop-downs. So use it in this fashion. And the code, the repo, the forms repo, you can see everything step by step, and you can go through these tags and read about everything. Okay? And there is one more thing. There is one more thing about creating a custom form field, right? Because form field is actually quite a nice construct. It gives you an onsaved method and a validator method, okay? So there is this form field class, sort of that's the parent class of text form field, for example, okay? So the form field superclass has the onsaved method, validator method, etc., and a few other things. So when you want to extend this in your form, so for example, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to do a date form field, which looks like a text form field, but the moment you click on it, it brings up the date picker, and then you will pick, because this is something that you will most probably use also in your code. So for that, the most efficient way to do it is in this way. So date form field extends form field, so we get all the, all the mechanism of a form field, which means that if I inject it inside a form object, right? Anytime I say form.validate, it gets automatically validated. But if I do any other construct, the form.validate is not going to trigger it, okay? So here, for this one, I'm just, I create a new widget, date form field widget, which you'll see in the next page. But what it's basically doing is it's calling the only thing that it requires for sure is the builder method of the superclass, of this form field class has to be specified. What am I going to put on the screen? So basically this thing is saying, what am I going to paint on the screen? Tell me, okay? So we're saying, okay, paint on the screen this widget, which is going to be basically a text field, and it gets the state of the form. Now, what does the state of the form have? The state of the form has this ability to call the validator and the ability to call the onsaved method, right? So the state of the form field has the ability to call these things. So we're passing, therefore, the state to this widget, and we're also passing a default date format, because that's obvious. If I'm going to have a date field, it should have a default date format. I'm passing a default date format of year, month, date. And with that, this is my widget. So my stateful widget, which gets shown as the builder of the form field, is this, which basically has a text field. it has a controller, the text editing controller. This is not a text form field, by the way. It's a regular text field, okay? Because the form business is handled by the state property of the superclass. So I'm putting an input decoration. I'm putting the date as the label, okay? And the only thing is, when I tap on it, okay, it shows the date picker, and the initial date is the widget.state.value. Now, what is the widget.state.value? State is the state of the form field. So whatever form field is holding as a value, that value is shown here. So the initial date of the date picker is whatever I passed to the form field. Then the context is, okay, it's the context of that state, right? And the first date and last date are dates that I give. I mean, I could pass them in, but I'm just put the hard-coded there. It's the date range between which I should be able to select the date picker, okay? And then this is the most important part, okay? This is the most important part. When you tap, when this value is taken, so the show date picker is a pop-up that pops up, right? And what does it give at the end? It gives a date time object at the end after the pop-up, okay? And we store this into this value. Of course, potentially I could click outside and it would come null. That's fine. So therefore I have to call it a date time nullable. And then this is what I call, so this state is the state of the form field. So I'm telling the form field this value has now changed, okay? State did change value. So your value has changed. So the form field, which is holding the value of that field, it has now to register that it has changed. That's all. We're not calling the onSaved method yet. We're not calling the validator method. All we're doing is this widget is changing the value of that form. So you can put any kind of widgets. For example, this could be an image picker. Think about it. You know, to pick an image, you could create a form field, like an image picker, okay? This widget would be an image picker. All it returns at the end is either a file object or a file path. You can do both of them. So you can create, and obviously how it looks on the screen is painted here, okay? So that's some material for you to use whenever you need it in terms of, you know, extending the forms and build your custom form fields. And this goes also for checkboxes, radio buttons, and so on. I mean, not all of them have a form field. You have packages that do that, but you should learn this technique. Okay, now it's time for our presentation on explicit animations.
Is it just this one? Right?
Yes.
Does this look okay? Yeah. So we'll follow this order. Right. So after you will be me, and then you have we, and I just enter this one, and then you do status. Yeah. You finish. Is that okay?
Sorry. It doesn't like it?
It asked me and I said allow. It asked me permission to leave it out. Do you have a mic?
Yeah.
And all you do is that.
Oh,
to
no,
connect
this one is disconnected.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why. Okay, good.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mamsi, this is Josein, Hardik, and Deepak. So today we are doing a presentation on explicit animations. So as the name suggests, the explicit animations, nothing but it allows you to explicitly control the animations that you are implementing on your app by dynamic values. So here the first one is animation controller. So typically, its animation controller has a values that is ranging from 0 to 1, and it also allows you to like start an animation or stop an animation or reverse it or repeat the animation. And once it is triggered, you can play with the values dynamically and until you get the desired animation that you want while implementing your application. And you can change the values like width, height, or opacity or anything. And this also has listeners you can add it to. So this will generally invoke when the interval values of controller changes. And you can register that as a function, and whenever you want to update the state of the widget, so it will trigger the function like add listener functions that we add in our application. And so these
So
are the
hold on. Explain a little bit more. You know, what is the common way you use the add listener? What do you do? What function do you put into add listener?
so those
Typically.
are already in the code. So somebody is going to explain it on the next step. So that's why I'm keeping it
the
simple.
demo.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
So-
what you will see.
Yeah, you will see. And these are the common fields, like common methods that were in animation controller you can give. So you have a value that you can give, and forward. Forward is nothing but like when you start an animation, you can give the values from 0 to 1 that progresses. And there is a reverse method. So this will be from 1 to 0 from reverse. So which will reverse the animation, and then there is a stop. So this will stop the animation at particular intervals of time, like whatever the value is you set. And add listener, as I said, this is a register function that will invoke when the controller value changes. And the next one is tween. So as I said, for the animation controller, we have values from 0 to 1. So you might want the values more than that. Or so basically what tween does, it is an object that will allow you to keep the values from -100 to 100. So with that, and also it will also allow you to change the RGB colors and things. So this is an example here. So this is the highlighted thing. This is a tween object, and you can give the values like begin where you want to begin the value with, and the end value, and then it will animate with that. So that's the object you can apply to any widget. And this is another example using tween. If you want to change any colors, so it will give the beginning color and end colors and animate it through it. And another one is ticker provider. So for everything, like our controller requests ticker provider, which is usually a widget itself. So basically ticker provider, what it does is like whenever there is a frame update, it will just let our app know what the update is like. So at a particular interval values, it allowing the controllers to update in intervals of particular values that you do. So the ticker provider inherits them from a single ticker provider state mixing. So this is one with the example I will show you. So here we have a class that extends state with a single ticker provider state mixing. So here we are giving the particular value here. We sync this. So it could be a particular widget that you want to that will be updated at that particular time. So this will, whenever the widget is called, it will let the app know that it is going to be updated like. And the listeners. So you can register a listener on the animation object. So it will get notified whenever the animation value has changed on every frame or whenever the animation changes. So whenever you give a value after every whatever listener you had at a particular time, so the code will listen to the whenever you add the. I will show you in the code once again. So you can see it here on the code. This one here. So we add a listener over there. So when you give the values here, you added a listener at the beginning here. So at each value, whenever the value changes from 0 to 1, we added a listener here. So after the each value changes, it will print the current value animation here. So that's what the listener does here. So you can use it in different ways. This is the code, just an example code how you can use it. And the next tutorials will be continued by Josiah.
Well, hi everybody. I think our I think the best way to learn is to like take you through like a small tutorial and how to actually like implement all the items that my friend went over, Vincent. And so after you create like just any empty application, you can just use we'll use this basic app that all it's doing is displaying a logo that you can resize, right? And then we can animate the resize. So you can just copy it, go to your main file, and write it here. And going over, this is just a stateful widget. Sorry, it's just a stateful widget that when you look at the state, actually what we're tracking is the size of the logo, and we want that size to be changing, right? And so we have, when you look at what we're building, in the body of the scaffold, we just have a column with a button at the top that says increase the size. Then in the center, we're displaying the logo with the value of the size of the logo. And then at the bottom of the page, we have two more buttons, one that will decrease the size and one that will do animate. And as you can see, when we press each button, we're calling a function at the top. And so to increase the logo size, we just update the state of the widget so that it will refresh with an incremental step. And then making sure that it's between minimum and maximum value so that it doesn't go outside of the screen or that you can't see it. And then the same thing happens on reducing, but we're just like subtracting instead of adding. While the animate is not doing anything yet, and we'll show you what it will do. So technically over here, we're not going anything new yet. This is technically material that we've been over. So as you can see, we just have a button that increases the size of the logo by 50 actually, and then decreases up until you reach a maximum. And then we have the button that will do animate. So let's implement animate so that we know what it will do. And so, as Vinci went over, we'll use the animation controller. The animation, as the name implies, it'll give you control over the animation, in which it's the whole manager of the animation, going from 0 to 1 between a given amount of time. So in this case, we can give it like, 2 seconds or something, and then increasingly start changing the size value of the logo during those 2 seconds, right? So first of all, we'll have a feel for the controller. We can go back.
So can I stop 1 second? So basically, when you have a television, for example, right? The television has a refresh rate of about 30 frames per second. So in order to see an animation that's sort of smooth on the screen, basically whatever is changing has to be repainted on the screen approximately 30 frames a second. So what does the ticker mixin do? Ticker mixin says basically every 30 times a second, it comes and says, let's repaint you, or maybe 40 times a second, I don't know. But that's what the ticker provider mixin does. Every time it comes in, then the controller, let's say the controller is going linear from 0 to 1. It's going to say, okay, in the first kick, I'm going to go from 0 to 0.1, 0.01, then 0.02, 0.03, and basically all of that I'm going to cover in the duration amount of seconds. it's basically, you know, it's nothing too complicated. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just, you know, the refresh rate of the screen has to be not jagged. You shouldn't do it, you know, once 3 times a second. So then you do this. You have to do, and the ticker provider does that basically to automatically kicks this controller and does. Obviously, what it does is that it needs to coordinate with other parts of the app which may need the service, so that the rebuilds are not done. The rebuilds are not done at slightly overlapping times. So at, you know, time 0.001, you know, this animation it has to be repainted, but then as you know, the other one is going to be repainted, then the other one is repainted. Instead of doing that, which are obviously kicking each other all the time, you repaint everything. So therefore, that's the orchestrator of that animation. Okay? Sorry, I just...
No problem. So, like the professor said, we use the ticket provider to know how often we need to refresh, right? Because and if your phone goes 30 frames per second, then it means that every second, 30 times, the action controller will have to invoke every listener, basically. And then that's when you refresh the page to show how it's, you know, changing the value over time. It's technically going increasingly, but it goes so fast, 30 times in a second, or 120 or whatever. It goes so fast that we just see it smoothly, right, incrementing. So over here, I'm just adding the field for the animation controller. And then we can initialize it in the init states. So we'll override init state. Then in here, we'll initialize controller. And immediately after you say, you know, animation controller, you can see that we're asked the ticket provider, which you can use this same widget itself after it implements this class over here. This one will consider the state of the widget to be the provider of the ticketing that has to happen. So you can say this to reference itself. Then you will see there's another parameter called duration, in which we can give it the duration of how long this animation will take, right? So we can say, I don't know, 3 seconds or whatnot. After the controller is initialized, remember, we want to add a listener to it so that every time the value gets updated and we need to refresh the page, then we can change the state of the controller, of the widget, so that it will repaint, right? So if you say controller that add listener, then like this. So this method will be invoked every time we need to refresh the page. So we can say set state, so that we'll update and refresh the component. And then what we are tracking in this state is the logo size. So over here, we want to set the logo size. Now, the controller by default has a value that goes from 0 to 1. You can think of it as a percentage. We're going from 0% all the way to 100%. So what we can do is we can get the controller value, but if we multiply it by the maximum size, then you can think of this as whatever the value it is currently right now will take that much of the maximum size. So we want to get to 300 actually. So we'll go progressively, go from 0, little by little, going all the way to 300. And then the button that we say that was going to animate, that currently is doing nothing, then we can say controller that forward, so that it'll start the animation going forward, meaning going from like 0 to 1. And then you'll see that the state gets refreshed every so often. So this is like the hello world of animations, I guess. It's very simplistic. Now you can see over here, like over the course of, what was it, 3 seconds, did I say? So over the course of 3 seconds, you saw how the set state method, this one, the listener got invoked every so often, and it was setting the state to refresh the widget, updating the value of the size, of the logo size. Let me. You want to refresh on the later on? So you can go over twins.
So let us talk about tweens. So here, before we use the animation.controller. So here we use tweens.animation.controller. So what tweens does is, as earlier Josian said that the animation controller just goes from a control value of 0 to 1 by default. So what we are here trying to do is, what if we want to go to a custom where minimum size would be 50 and maximum size would be like 150 or whatever we want. So here we use the tween method, and for that, yeah. So here you see that tween double and the animation controller. So we can put the duration for like 2 seconds or 3 seconds or whatever it is. So here the set state is logo size. The animation value will ranges from the min size to the max size. And earlier you do not need to do the multiplication of logo size like this, controller value into the maximum size. So that is how tween works. It just goes smoothly, animates from the min size to the maximum size.
Then the last thing. So on the next thing that we wanted to show you was the animated widget. As you saw, it's very likely that you add a listener that is just gonna update the state of the widget, causing it to refresh so that you can go smoothly from one side to another. But animated widget, it's a helper class that it would just refresh itself, like every so often the animation it's invoked, right? So going over it, what changed is over here you can see that now at the bottom we're passing a widget for animated logo, and where it's requiring the animation. So once you pass the animation, let's look over the definition of the animated logo that inherits from animated widget. It requires something that is listenable. It's an interface that it's of anything that will be called, right, every so often. So every time the animation calls its listener, the build method will be invoked, causing it to rebuild. So as you saw before, the animation had a value, and we were using it to change like the height and width of the logo. So over here, as you can see, the code basically simplified by not having to like add
Setting state.
adding a listener down here. So like my friend was explaining, we use a tween to go from the minimum size to the maximum size, because the animation controller would just go from 0 to 1, and that's like not very useful. Many times we want to go, I don't know, from like 0 to 100, or in this case we want to go from 50 to 300, or we want to go from one color to another color, because you can make it like change, like you can use the animation for any of that. So you can use a tween and get, you know, the animation object so that you interpolate it. Technically, if you were to actually look at the running app, it's still doing exactly the same thing. But it's a much cleaner way of doing it, because the animated widget just introduced less code to go
Can
over.
I jump in here? So why is this important? Okay, this is very important, very good that Josian is showing this. Why is it important? Is because, for example, you have a big stateful page with a lot of things on it, okay? And in one corner, you have an animation that you have to do, you want to do. You don't want to rebuild the whole page with set state by kicking the controller's set state. So you basically link your controller in your big stateful page to that animated widget. You don't need to rebuild everything static on the page. You just build that if you need to do animation, or maybe it's doing back and forth animation doing something, maybe it's, little bird jumping up and down every 2 minutes, whatever. So that's why it's important. I mean, that's how you have to think about it from an economics point of view.
So let us talk about get animation status notifications. So here what we do is we add a thing called status listener. So here our goal is to do a looping animation. So what we do is when there's like two states, dismissed states and completed states. When a completed state is reached, that means the maximum size of the logo is reached. The controller goes back to reverse. Yeah, the controller goes back to reverse. That means the size starts to decrease again. When the dismissed state is reached, the controller moves forward, will start to increase the font. The animation goes smoothly. And yeah.
You can animate it so they can see. So over here, we're just adding another listener, but it's just for the status. So once the animation status changes, then we can run other code. And as over here, once it's completed, then we'll reverse. And once it goes to start, we'll go forward, and it'll just loop forever. But anyways, you should check out step 5, step 6. Yeah, exactly that. And hit refresh.
So if you just look at this animation going on here, basically it's going kind of a linear way. We don't want all the animations going in a linear way. Sometimes we want a part of the animation going fast and then going on. So that's why Flutter also has this concept of setting an animation curve. So this helps us to run the animation in various speeds and various forms, and these are some of the examples that we have. Like ease in sine, ease in cubic, ease in circle, etc., etc. So if you look at the code over here, we just add another animation over here, mentioning it as curved animation, and the curve that we declare it as ease in circle. So once we have in a code, we just have the ease out. So when it's coming out, like when the size is getting bigger, it's kind of slow. But when the size is at the smallest item, it kind of go fast. Okay, run this again.
Yep. No, let's put it again. It's still going.
Deepak, can you put it on to bounce in and out or something, which is more profound effect that we can see? Then ease out is more close to linear.
Well, since we're already looping the animation, it's kind of
okay. Just go ahead.
I mean, we have to
fine.
okay.
Let's see how it.
Small enough.
You can hit the animation.
Huh.
So this one, when
it's at the largest size, the speed is kind of small. It's taking time, but when the speed is decreasing, and it's at the minimum point, it's kind of going fast. So this is the outstage that we generally have, and
you can use the second tab animation. Like if you go to the second tab here, that one. You can hit play and show it how it will move.
This is the ease out graph that we have. So basically at the start, it rises very rapidly and then it goes kind of slow. We also have the
that's the one that we have right now.
Yeah, this is the one that we have right now. It's kind of going pretty much linear and slow at the end. And this is ease out circle. Sorry, ease out exponential. So
try that one.
Yeah,
you can change it.
Sign.
Video. Yeah. And then go back.
If you see,
When it's smaller, it bounces, but then when it becomes
it's getting slow. I mean, if we set more timing,
Can you just put the bounce? Then I will see.
the bounce.
Bounce in and out. Where do you say start with a B? It will come Just go to the code. Just where you say curves.x something.
Go to automatic goals.
There, yeah. Just delete that and start with B. And it will, yeah.
And
Save it.
Save it and refresh.
Save it and refresh.
I don't think.
I don't think we can show because we're already looping it kind of.
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't think it's gonna work because go to your code.
Yeah.
Because you're here setting animation equals this, and then you're overriding animation. There's no way this thing is gonna take to this variable.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think
Okay,
you have
so the way to do it is go to forward, go to one of the forward commands.
Okay.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, there.
Like,
Here,
In the
Forward.
animation, yes.
go in there. Go inside there, yeah, and see what option it gives you. There is a, curve. Put curve, colon, bounce in and out. Yeah, curve, colon. No, not curved animation, curve, colon.
just don't.
No, colon, not semicolon.
Connect it.
Anyway,
Just don't reassign the variable. Yeah, don't reassign the variable and then isolate it.
anyway, okay. Good. So there is something there. You know, you guys can think about it and fix it. That curve thing, because you're overriding that.
It's not showing up.
It's not gonna come back.
And then we also have simultaneous animation. So this is when like we are having two animations running at the same time.
Okay.
If you go and look at the code over here, we have an opacity tween defined over here that varies its values from 0.1 to 1 to define the opacity of the logo that we are going to display here. And in our widget build over here, we're building it, the opacity animation is going to build over here. So we have the animation for opacity running over here, and the animation for the size that we have here in the size child.
You need to remove your commit changes. Yeah. Now you can check out the branch. Go at the bottom.
The quiz. For you, maybe 10 minutes, you'll be done.
You see, as the animation, it's when size gets increases, the
And the
opacity.
curve, do you see how it works?
What's Pennsylvania?
So when it's small, it bounces. When it's bigger, it goes slower.
Yes, but where did you set the curve? Can you show the curve? Where you set it? In the code?
And the other, yeah, it's not here. Yeah, you have to scroll down. Visualize the controller more here. So we didn't override the variable.
Yeah, if you don't override, then it will work, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, but here your animation is no
Do
longer.
exponential.
Yeah.
So, guys, 1 second. So, their animation now, just hold there. The animation now is called curved animation. It's no longer the tween. So, they are manipulating the tweens manually. Before, the animation itself was a tween. okay? It was a tween, was the animation. But now it's just a curved animation with what basically gives is a number, and then the tween takes the number and creates a value. So go to the part where you're showing the tween.
Step 3.
Up.
Final.
There.
There, hey, just a little bit up, or here. Yeah, here. So the opacity tween is defined as a tween between 0.1 and 1, and then it gets evaluated by the current value of the animation. And the animation, it just takes that curve, and based on the ticker, it creates a value like the bounce in and out or the exponential curve value, etc. And then the tween actually animates the value to put in, and the tween can be, as they explained, it could be a color tween, it could be a double, it could probably be an integer, I don't know now, but anyway. Perfect. Okay.
You can refresh and show the expo curve if you want, and then that's it. That's all we have.
This was quite extensive. We filled the whole lecture almost.
Oh, sorry. Reduce it. Oh, that one is huge.
The exponential.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Very good. Thank you very much. It was a big effort, lots of documentation. So I'll put it up on I put your guys' thing in the modules, right? Your repos and your thing. I'll put yours as well. Once you fix that little thing with the animation. Okay, perfect. So let's do this. Okay, let's give a little break because our other team is not ready yet about the implicit animations. So we're going to get that later. After we come back from the break, I'm going to talk about getting contacts from the mobile phone and adding contacts and changing contacts, etc. And then we're going to do our quiz. Any questions? Okay, let's take, let's be back at, let's be back at 8:05, please.
So ఇక్కడ పైన animation equal to పెట్టుకో animation పెట్టకు మళ్ళీ animation equal to tween out రాసాడు అసలుకి ఒక స్టెప్ వరస్ట్ గా అసలుకి నేను చెప్పిన దాంట్లో సెట్ రిమూవ్ చేసి పైన విజెట్ పెట్టి కొట్టాడు అది చూడాలని ఎందుకు ముందు అంత ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేశారు నేను చెప్పలేకుండా యాక్చువల్లీ నువ్వు చెప్పేటప్పుడు ట్వీన్ అంటే ఇట్ క్యాన్ బి ఎనీ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ కర్వ్ బిట్వీన్ టూ వాల్యూస్ నువ్వు అది ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తుంటావు నేను మన దాంట్లో ట్వీన్ ఎక్కడ పెట్టాం సైజెస్ కి నేను
చెప్తుంది కదా స్ట్రక్చర్స్ యానిమేషన్ పార్ట్ ఒక్కటే రివీల్ చేస్తుంది మిగతా
ఒకటి చెప్పొచ్చు ఇంకోటి నా సెకండ్ ఏంట్రా యాడ్ స్టేటస్ లిస్ట్ నాకు నాది విడ్జెట్ వాడు చెప్పింది అది కూడా స్టేటస్ లిస్ట్ కంట్రోలర్స్ రివర్స్ చేస్తుంది ఏ కాంటే మనకి ఇష్టం వచ్చిన స్టేట్ పెట్టుకొని ఇష్టం వచ్చిన యాక్షన్ పెట్టుకోవచ్చు అదొకటే చెప్పాలి ఒకటే దానికి ఏం లేదు చెప్పడానికి ఏం చేస్తున్నాడు మొత్తం కోడ్
అంటే మేము కొంచెం వర్క్ చేస్తున్నాం ఎలా
ఈసారి ఇట్లా కాదు ఈసారి స్టార్టింగ్ చేస్తారు కోడ్
ఫిగ్మా అందరూ వాళ్ళు చేసింది ఫైనల్ చేద్దాం
లేసింగ్ చేయాలంటే కోడ్ చూసిన స్క్రీన్ షాట్ పెడితే చేసేటప్పుడు అది అలా కనిపించదు అరే ఈసారి కోడ్ నేమ్ స్టార్ట్ చేస్తారా UI చూసి దొంగన కొడుకు ఫైల్స్ ఎక్కువ రాస్తారు ఎరుపు కోడ్లన్నీ రాస్తున్నాడు క్లీన్ గా కూడా లేదు అది నేను అట్లా అయితే నేను చేసాను సార్ నేను అందరూ క్లీన్
నేను నువ్వే చేస్తున్నావు అనుకున్నావు చూడు డాక్యుమెంటేషన్
చూడు నేను చూసానంటే 4 పెట్టా సేమ్ ఎమిషన్ కంట్రోలర్ ట్రీన్స్ ఇది ఇంకా రిటర్న్ బ్యాక్
So that's your monthly rate, huh?
పెట్టలేదు అంటే చేసి
Okay, so that's sufficient?
రొటేటింగ్ కార్డు చేయలేదు కంప్లీట్ మనది ఏంటంటే దాని ప్రాబ్లం ఏంటంటే నిజంగా చేంజ్ చేస్తున్నట్టు కనిపిస్తుంది
You should just design those scripts without plugging them first.
ఓకే
లో మూమెంట్ లో బౌన్స్ అవుతుందా
Just
ఆయన అదే అంటున్నాను కదా
in such a way that if there are any buttons, also create the callbacks for those buttons, and the page or the view be really independent of any qubit or anything. So it should just say, you know, the callback for this button is this, the callback for this button is this, and then whatever I pass to it, it'll do it. Then you start building the qubits and blocks, etc. around.
So we're working on like full, not just the game itself, but like during the process of keep track of like statistics and we'll save that in the database so that when goes to the profile, they can actually check like, hey, successfully arrested.
Yeah,
Stuff like that. So
very good. Amazing. You have a question?
Regarding our presentation, we got these
Yeah, you can, I mean, basically look at the best practices. Like, for example, if you have an app that goes to a large screen, you don't really get a bottom navigation bar. You get something more on the left. So I think there are widgets that already do that. For positioning and so on. So basically, I mean, what I think you get is like responsive layout.
Yeah, I'm good.
One of the things you do is the navigation bar display, and then
Okay, so bottom navigation bar too, like maybe to the left side, so that like once it's like responsive when you like put it inwards, then it goes again downwards.
yes, it will automatically go anyway. The responsive layout, there is a responsive package, and then you can set the breakpoints. And there's a few settings if you can play with them and figure them out. There's a setting where, for example, between two breakpoints, let's say you're between 800 and 1000, it just scales the screen. Right? It doesn't give you more space at the same font size, but it just scales the screen to a larger thingy, and then at 1000 and over, it goes into another mode again. You know, there's this way to specify it. I mean, I don't remember it 100% now. So just, you know, give a little bit of a taste to people that they can go and implement it if they need to.
And we just
So that's the idea.
I think it would make sense.
Yeah, breakpoints again, you know, mobile tablets. And then also things like, you know, if you go to 1500,
oh, in Figma.
you should really then basically you're in a desktop mode, keep the content sort of in the center.
Everything.
What do we have?
So the location you have saved, I think I will saying remember this. Where would it be saved? Where would it be saved and how would it be?
Yes.
Let's It's not put any values or anything, it's just one like this side.
You can make
And then
changes,
it's not
just basically for us. Okay? So you do a UI, you have a very good idea of what you want to do. Of course, it's going to change.
आपके टाइम पे भी लोगों ने यही करा बोला था नॉट माय इंटरेस्ट पहली बार जब आया था so what we submit to submit ID
No, it's just keep on time.
Okay.
Click on the navigation, it will show which one is active.
It's funny because we just went over explicit animations and likely they won't use them. They would, if you were to use them, you'll probably use the implicit one.
So
There are not many.
let's quickly look at contacts in Flutter. It's again one of these things that your device has, and every now and then you may want to, access the contacts. There are so many apps that access the contacts, so it's something that we should learn about. So the contacts only exist in Android and iOS at the moment, or the contacts ability. So there is a package called Flutter Contacts, which gives us this ability. So in the Android manifest file, you put read-write contacts permission for Android. And in the iOS, in the info plist file, you put a description of why you need access to the contact. So you have to have as you know, with Apple, you have to have a legitimate reason and you have to explain it. Now, how am I going to do the contacts page? I'm going to show you the code in a minute. But how am I going to do it? Again, this is a exercise for us to think about the structure of pages with qubit, etc. So the contacts page fires up the qubit. So it creates the qubit and injects it into the widget tree, right? With a block provider. I didn't show here, but it injects the qubit into the widget tree. Then I have a block builder, and the block builder basically acts as a switch, okay? And based on the state that's coming in, it shows these pages. So it either shows a spinner, a waiting page. It says, sorry, I have no permissions for contacts page. It shows a contacts view with edit and contacts view without edit, if there is only read-only permission, okay? And the qubit, it has an init function. And an init function, it will basically try to get a permission, right? It needs to get a permission, and then it needs to also, depending on the permission, go and get the contacts list from the computer. And then there is a function for edit contact. So when there's a request to edit contact, we call this function, which then displays a form, right? And then the value of the form is saved with the save contact function of the qubit, and that's a page structure. Again, these are pretty obvious, but it's good to go over them. This is a duplicate. I don't know why. Okay, in the initialization routine, right? The Flutter contacts is the class that comes from the package, Flutter contact package. I request permission. If the permission type is full permission, then I go to the package and I get the contacts. And then once I have the contacts, I emit this state. I have contacts permission full access, and this is the list of contacts, okay? And I add this exclamation mark here because I'm sure that contacts is not null. And then if permission type is not there, I can try another trick with Android. If there is Android, I can try another trick. And now I request a permission in the read-only mode. Maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I'm going to get a read-only permission from the Android. And if that's the case, if I get that permission, then I get the contacts, but this time I emit a state where I say contacts permission read only and the contacts list, okay? And if any of these happen, then I return the call, so I don't get to that stage. But if I don't hit these states, I send a state saying contact permission denied. So how do I view the contacts? So the contacts view page gets a ball, whether it's read-only or not, okay? And it gives us a list view with the children of, mapping the contacts, which is a contact object, into a list tile with just contact.display name. So it just gives us a list of these things. Then this would be the list view, and that's it. This would be the case without the edit button. Now, if I want to edit the contact, okay, the edit contact function with the contact passed in emits a contact edit state, and with this edit state, I'm sending the contact in the state because the state is going to be used to generate that view. I'm going to enter, send the contact, but also a save contact callback I put it into the state, so the state can then trigger the view. And the save contact function, what it does is it calls the Flutter contacts, it updates the contact, and then it gets the contacts again. It builds the contact list again, and then emits the contact list back to the view. And and then basically we've added from the earlier pages, we've added this contact edit state. If that's the case, I'm calling the contact edit view with with which contact I'm editing, and also the callback to assign to the save function. And then there is something that I came across when I was playing with Android. You need to set these values when you're dealing with Android to be able to update them. To be able to read them, it's not important, but you need to set these values because that means that some internal IDs are coming from the Android to you. So therefore, when you're saving the contact, Android knows, or updating the contact, Android knows which contact to update. So pay attention to this. And yeah, so that's the code. And let me just fire up the code. And yeah, Kim Song.
Function, what do we use permission type for?
So permission type,
Yeah. Like, what do we use it for?
we use it for if the permission type is not not full or read only. If it's none, you cannot show anything. So you get the permission. You can either have a full, read only, or none, or unknown.
Just like in the code, it doesn't seem like we ever use that variable. So I was just wondering how it's used.
Sorry, let me see, maybe I didn't use it and I put it there. Hold on, let me find the piece in the code. Is it in the qubit? Here.
Yeah, so we get permission.
Oh,
time.
yes, it's irrelevant, you're right.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is irrelevant. I'm just getting the no, actually I'm getting it. I'm setting it.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I'm setting it as a parameter. Okay, I'm setting it as a parameter in the qubit, so it's good for me to know, but I'm not actually explicitly using it in emitting any states. But typically, for example, here after save contact, because I have saved contact, it means that I should have. I mean, I'm implying that I'm already able to save it, but I could check, for example, here whether I have that permission or not. But I'm just keeping it as a value inside the qubit. Right. So where is the simulator? Okay, so I get my contacts. This is in the edit mode. Let's refresh this. I've got my contacts. I can go into edit. I can change the name, and it changed. I can change it back. It changes. So that's how the contact works, and you have that in the repo that you can access for this pattern to see how it works. Questions on this? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but it's just another sort of thing to know. What else am I going to show? I mean, to be honest, I don't have anything else to show on this stuff. I mean, I actually created also the animations package, and there was one thing I wanted to, actually we can quickly run this and I can show you some other things about animations just to reinforce what we learned from the wonderful presentation earlier. So this is an animation which will go forward, and the reason I'm showing is I'm printing out these values, the animation controller values, so you have a better idea. And this is a color tween in this case, which you guys showed the color tween, or you just talked about it? You just talked about it, right? Yeah. So this is the color tween. So what this will go from yellow to blue, whatever, and this button, that button. So let's look at that button. Where is that coming from? From the animation page. Where is the animation page? Yeah. So that button. So the actions, okay, actions in the actions in the app bar, okay? Actions in the app bar are buttons or whatever widgets I can put on one side of the app bar. One of them is a replay widget, this curly one. The other one is a play arrow. And the play arrow, it just does a controller.forward, which what we saw earlier. The thing I was going to show, actually, I made a mistake. There is a controller.animate2 function. So the controller has forward, reverse, but it has also an animate2 function, in which case you give a value for the animation, value, between 0 and 1, and you also give a curve. So in this case, the back button should take us back from the value. Okay, so when I hit the forward, so on the bottom, I'm showing this all state changes or the animation state changes. So what they talked about animation state, when you come to the end or when, to reverse, when you come to the end or things like that. So these state changes are placed here. So now I'm at the end of the animation. If I click forward, nothing happens. But if I click on this one, what it's going to do, it's still going to go forward because I'm giving an animate 2. There's also an animate reverse, animate 2. But now from the current position, whatever that is, to 0 using a bounce in curve. Okay, so when I click this, it should go to 0 with a bounce in curve. Obviously, with the color, I don't see the bounce in. But the other thing here is that because these buttons can start and stop the animation, so while I'm playing it, if I click on the reverse, before getting to the end, it brings me back before I get to the blue. So I'm playing it, I'm in the middle of the animation, but before it ends, I click the replay button, which then takes me from that position back to 0. Okay? So that's things about animation. Switch. Okay, so this one is a size animation of the thing. So we have a container this size, but right now it's 0. It's the same thing as the color, but you will see this bounce in effect. So it goes linearly out, but when I want to bring it back, it does the bounce in thing and then goes back, right? So that's the thing. All of that is in the repo. Both this one and the presentation of I don't know which group you guys are, but those Josian and Vamsi and Deepak and Satya. So that group I'm going to also put into the thing. So it's a good base for you to do any animations. And I strongly encourage you to have some animation in your code, at least on the splash screen or something. Okay? Any questions on these things? All right. In that case, we can get going with the oh, sorry, one more thing I want to say. So, the reason I asked for you to do the Figmas is basically for you to get an idea of what to code with the design, with the UI. So please start as soon as possible to code those screens and make sure that you don't you do these screens with any kind of if there are any buttons in there, pass these button functions into the screen as void functions, whatever, but and attach them to the button, and then once you're ready to pass in the actual function, you can pass the actual function in it. But build those screens independent of anything else as much as possible. Okay? All right. So please don't rush answering these questions. They are mostly multiple choice, but read it twice, please.
I have one, thank you.
So, three.
See the paper.
Okay.
Okay, let's write that to everyone. Thank you very much. Can I have your attention? You can go to question 7. In choice C, it should be Firebase cloud messaging, not Firebase messaging. To be more exact, Firebase cloud messaging. 7C, Firebase cloud messaging. No, only one. Each question has only one answer. So find, if you're unsure, pick the best one that you think it is. Guys, Finished?
For an A and B, do you want just like in context of what's here or like?
What does it track?
Okay. What's it?
Yeah, what's the Yeah, that's fine.
ఉంటావో అన్ని ఒకేసారి చూపించాలని ట్రై చేస్తాం. సింగిల్ చైల్డ్ 1 per column.
డిస్ప్లే సైజ్ ఫుల్ స్క్రీన్ కదా.
itself a single column count.
డైనమిక్ గా ఏ పార్ట్ అయితే ఉంటుందో అది దాంట్లో లింక్ యాడ్ చేసి దాన్ని రౌట్ చేయడం.
At the center point. What's the difference?
రేపంతా ఖాళీ.
రేపంతా ఖాళీ మనం లింక్ అయితే షేర్ చేసి పెట్టేస్తాను నేను ఇవాళ.
నీకు పెట్టా
గ్రూప్
నాటికి చేస్తాను.
ఫ్రైడే మార్నింగ్ వెళ్తున్నావా? ఇంటికి వెళ్ళేది నువ్వు అక్కడికి 11 అక్కడ ఉండాలా? వచ్చేయచ్చు కావాలంటే. అంటే కాకపోతే దానికి ఉదయాన్నే లెగాలి. ఈ బద్దకిస్టులు ఉదయాన్నే లెగిస్తారా లేదా అని అదే
You don't choose the string. It takes entire container, the size kada.
It takes as much space as it needs. Child to get this and
Scroll from the entire container.
టెక్స్ట్ ఉంటే అంత
అవి రెండు కాన్ఫ్లిక్ట్ అవుతాయి.
సొల్యూషన్ బోనస్ పై
బోనస్ పాయింట్
లాస్ట్ క్వశ్చన్ బోనస్
ఎక్కడే వచ్చింది.
స్క్రీన్
అది యాజ్ మచ్ as స్పేస్ తీసుకుంటుంది కాబట్టి ఎన్ని లిస్టులు ఉంటాయి ఎన్ని టెక్స్ట్ బాక్స్ అంటే అన్ని ఒకేసారి తీసుకోవాలి. నేను కంటైనర్ అనే వర్డ్ రా both text fields
of each text file.
both text fields single text field per column okay. First అయితే both text fields.
Next one.
Secondly one text field per column. ఏం లేకపోతే
సైడ్కి వెళ్ళి
ఏం లేక డిఫాల్ట్
మరి వాట్ ఇస్
అప్పుడు ఆ లెక్క కాదు.
అసలు గలీజ్ గుంట
ఫస్ట్ ది ఫుల్ మొబైల్ స్క్రీన్, సెకండ్ ది జస్ట్ ఆ టూ బాక్సెస్.
సెకండ్ అంటే బాడీ
ఐ థింక్ నాది ఫస్ట్, అందుకే నాకు ఫస్ట్ కన్ఫర్మ్ లేదని చెప్పాను. సెకండ్ ఆన్సర్
95 పుష్ అండ్ పుల్ అవసరం ఉంటుంది. ఇంగ్లీష్ డౌట్ కొట్టిందా సార్ రాసేటప్పుడు? కొట్టి మరీ చూసా ఆ రూట్కి గో అవుతుంది అని రాద్దాం అనుకున్నాం.
అంటే పుష్ అంటే
నేను లిటరల్లీ అవే వాడా మన గోటూతో చేసేటప్పుడు గోకి పుష్ వాడా, నెక్స్ట్ దాంట్లో వెళ్ళడానికి వాటికి గో వాడా.
వెళ్ళి
आप लोगों को रूटिंग दिखाता हूँ मैं.
రూటింగ్ దిగతా
What space is it?
చూడు ఎలా ఉంటుంది తెలుసు మన
Okay, so whatever the content want to be.
కాదు,
But then you put the
ఉంది కదా
content, which
పైన
is a
ఒక
list view, which
స్ట్రక్చర్
wants to take input.
కింద పెయింట్ వేస్తాను.
So then the single child
ఆర్టిస్టిక్
scroll also tries to get infinite space, but then it cannot determine its
ఏంటి
size.
లోగోకి అవి ఎవడొచ్చేస్తారు.
లోగో స్ప్లాష్ స్క్రీన్ లో అలా ఉంటుంది అనమాట.
Well,
స్మాల్ ఐటమ్స్
the list view it tries to
Development
take
team
infinite size. Okay, and
వీడు ఎవడో నాకు చెప్తున్నట్టు.
ఇన్ఫినిట్ సైజ్ అంటే
అవును ఎన్ని పెడతావు ఎన్నిసార్లు స్క్రోల్ కావాలి? నువ్వు 150 పెడితే 150 స్క్రోల్ కావాలి. అదే
ఇప్పుడు నువ్వు ఎన్ని
list view is
స్క్రోల్ అయితేనే ఉంటుంది.